I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
One of the proudest citizens of the United States ever.
I love this American ride.
Simon Conway. On Des Moines News Radio, 1040 WHO.
All right, we are in studio with Congressman Tom Latham. We've got him for an hour, so we got him till 6 o'clock. If you've got any questions for him, I'm sure he'll be delighted to take them at 284-1040, 800-469-4295. Good afternoon, Congressman Latham.
Good afternoon, Simon. It's great to be with you.
It's good to see you again. It's been a while. Let's start off with something that hopefully all Iowans can agree on. You had a ceremony in your office in D.C. this morning regarding the USS Iowa.
Well, this is a formal signing of the agreement to have the USS Iowa on display as a museum in Long Beach, California, by Los Angeles.
Yep.
And this is just a huge effort put forth by a lot of Iowans, a lot of people from everywhere that see this, the Iowa-class battleship, the Iowa, being something that people can walk through, look at. Played such an important role in World War II, and the whole class of Iowa battleships played such a great role. But this is just a great, great day, and I was honored to have them sign the agreement in my office today.
I mean, it's just an accident of history, isn't it? I mean, but for the death of the president, the Japanese surrender could have been taken on board that ship. And it would be moored very happily in Hawaii right now.
That's exactly right. And, Roosevelt traveled on the Iowa several times, going to Europe. And so it's a great historical vessel, and one that we're just extremely proud to have that on display.
So hard to believe we almost lost the Iowa, but it's a great effort, as you rightly say, by everybody to make sure that didn't happen. And I did talk to your chief of staff this morning, and I apparently am getting a baseball cap, so I'm very pleased about that. Okay, so we start with some good news. Did you attend the correspondence dinner in D.C. over the weekend?
No, I was here in Iowa. I went to the Right to Life dinner, and then also went to the Barnstormers game Saturday night. So the first half was great.
Sounds like a more enjoyable weekend
by far.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, the president was quite funny if you exclude the dog-eating jokes and some of the other things. He was quite funny, but there was one thing he said which we're going to play that for you right now. So listen to this.
Let me just say something to all my conspiracy-oriented friends on the right who think I'm planning to unleash some secret agenda. You're absolutely right.
Okay, funny, ha 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 ha. But he wouldn't be the first president elected to a second term to change the way he does business, would he?
Well, I don't know if it'd be that much of a change, because I tell you what. The thing that I hear every day when I'm out visiting with constituents here, small business people, I don't care, farmers, it's their fear of what new regulations are going to come down on them next.
Yep.
And I will tell you, there's folks working 24/7 in Washington, D.C. right now to write new regulations to control us as citizens and to control the economy. And I am very, very fearful of what would happen if, in fact, there was no accountability with another election. With this administration, we have seen exactly what they have been doing, and I think it could be, regulations on steroids in the next 4 years, if in fact that happens.
I mean, we had the farming regulations, which have gone away for now, which was going to restrict people's ability to allow their own children to work on their own farms, which is, I mean, I'm not a farmer. I was born in London, England, okay? But even I know that if you're born into a farm family, you work on the farm.
Well, that's exactly right. And my bill that I introduced to stop that regulation, Senator Thune from South Dakota basically picked up the same language that I introduced and introduced that in the Senate. And I think just the public outcry, certainly in the agricultural community, the lack of any common sense to have the Department of Labor come and tell farm families exactly what their children can and cannot do. We're all concerned certainly about farm safety, but tell me who is more concerned about the safety of their children? The parents of these children, the parents, or some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. And I'm just very pleased that they have pulled back for the moment, at least. But I'm still going to push my bill because I'm just very concerned about what could happen in November.
Sure.
And to have them reverse again and go ahead with that new regulation.
You see, that's really my point. I mean, here we are in an election year, and I think he's probably withdrawn them because it's an election year. And, we don't just have farms in Iowa, but Iowa is clearly going to be crucial if the president wants to be reelected. He's going to need Iowa. But if he is reelected and never has to face the electorate again, we could be looking at these same regulations by February.
Well, and
maybe I'm being, being very conservative
you could see it
in
well
saying February.
Before that.
Yeah.
I mean, they could reintroduce the regulations, November 8th if they wanted to. And that's the real concern because it doesn't have any common sense involved. And that's,
None whatsoever.
I swear inside of the Beltway, there's not the idea of any common sense anywhere. And it is a huge concern, obviously. Like I said before, anyone you talk to in small businesses, farmers, anyone who's trying to do something, if you're a small bank owner today, see the new regulations come down, all of the things that are going to really keep the wet blanket over any kind of potential growth in our economy.
I'm sure a lot of people inside the Beltway are going, "What's a farm?"
Right. Especially at the Department of Labor.
Exactly. We're in studio with Congressman Tom Latham. We're going to take a quick 60 seconds to catch up with some traffic and weather, and then we'll be back with him. You can join that conversation at 284-1040, 800-469-4295. In the meantime, Jim Brown, what's it looking like out there, buddy? Okay, we are in studio with Congressman Tom Latham, and you can certainly call us and join us at 284-1040, 800-469-4295. We're going to take a call straight away before I change the subject, so let's go to George. Good afternoon, George. The Congressman can hear every word you're saying.
How you doing, Simon? Thank you, Congressman, for answering the question ahead of time. Hey, I'm just wondering when Congress at some point is going to draw a line in the sand with all the executive orders and the president going outside his boundaries, making up new laws, regulations, and just doing what he wants by his will. I mean, nobody's really calling him to task and saying, you don't have the authority, stop it. I'm just really curious. Where is the line in the sand? It seems like every time he does one, a lot of us are upset, and we hear people going, that's not right, but nobody's stopping it. Nobody's calling him, making it an issue.
Well, we certainly have been trying to make it an issue in the House of Representatives. And a lot of the new regulations that we were talking about earlier, we have put funding prohibitions in our appropriation bills so that they could not do those types of activities. The problem is when it gets over to the Senate with Harry Reid, and the president wouldn't sign bills like that. And that's the problem. Our power is the power of the purse, and you only have one body that is trying to restrict the out-of-control bureaucracy in Washington. The Senate and the White House believe in bigger government and more intrusive government, and that's the frustration I certainly have. Also, when you look at like the recess appointments that were, the president is making up, authority to be able to do things, shifting money like on the health care bill. He wants to move about $8.5 billion from one fund to another so that before the election so that seniors won't know that they're cutting their Medicare. Things like that are totally out of line, but it's going to take lawsuits. It's going to take a change in Congress to really address these things and to put a stop to this totally, I believe, overactive, out of control government we have in Washington.
Isn't part of the problem a GOP communication problem? Because they are successfully selling the fact that the reason Washington is broken is the Republicans because they won't agree to anything.
Well,
they're successfully selling it. I mean, I'm almost buying that.
What has happened with the last election, and the reason that we have 63 Republicans rather than Democrats, a total of 87 new Republicans in the House of Representatives, is because of the vast overreach of the previous Congress with Nancy Pelosi and President Obama. And so there was huge pushback, and our founding fathers would be very proud today that their system works, that we were, with an election, were able to bring, in essence, people will say gridlock. Well, stopping a bunch of the stuff that was going to happen for a lot of folks is good. That you're not going to have a lot of new things like the health care bill, or
I don't say it's bad. It's just not always truthful. A prime example we're going to get into in the second half of this interview. We're going to get into student debt in a big way, but that's a classic example of the president being able to say, "Hey, the Republicans are going to double your rate. They're going to double your rate," and then John Boehner comes out and goes, "Hey, "It's not really true. The Democrats did it."
What is
which is factually accurate, but it's just so weak.
The facts, I think that's a problem we have, certainly, is with communication. The fact is, the bill that was passed 5 years ago that had the doubling of the interest rates for student loans was a Democrat bill.
Exactly right.
And the reason they did that was so it wouldn't cost so much as far as the Congressional Budget Office, the way it was scored. So, and no one at that time believed that any kind of doubling would ever take place, but they did that just so it would get scored correctly.
Okay.
And then when we go and use a fund that the president took money out for the withholding earlier this year, $4 billion, called it then a slush fund, and now they're claiming that somehow, because we're also using that same fund that he rated before, that somehow we're bad or we're hurting women's health, which is not anywhere close to being the truth.
I completely understand that, but my point is just on communication. I mean, is the GOP too reliant on people like me, frankly? I mean, when he came out with that stuff, particularly on Fallon, the very next day I did something that I genuinely hate to do. I called the President of the United States a liar because he lied. Is the GOP too reliant on people like me to come and make their points for them?
Well, you think you're frustrated. I mean, we talk about if you heard the speech on the floor that the speaker made Friday afternoon on this issue, that did get some press over the weekend and was very well accepted. The American people, I think, get it from what he said. But in fact, when you have the mainstream media and when you have the bully pulpit of the President of the United States, it's very hard for one body to compete with all that. They're going to tell the story as they want it to be told.
Well, they are, but they're just using what's available better. Is my point. I mean, there's a hashtag on Twitter, isn't there? Which I'm just checking literally as I can walk and chew gum all at the same time. But he announced it on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. He's out there. He's announcing a hashtag out there, and it's right there. It's "Don't double my rate." It's incredible. There's just thousands of people tweeting with that hashtag.
I guess I'm like a lot of folks. I believe people will understand the truth when the truth is told. If they know about it, we're trying to do everything we can. That's why I'm here with you today, is to make sure people know exactly what the truth is. And, the president's got the bully pulpit, absolutely. He's got a lot of people in the press that would love to promote him every day, and whatever he says will take, as being true. When the facts get out, people get it.
Okay. All right. We're going to grab one very quick phone call. We've got literally a minute, so you've got 20 seconds to ask the question. He'll have 40 to answer it. John, go ahead.
Very simple question. Congressman, have you had the opportunity to sit down and talk sort of just straight across with the Tea Party people, and what do they think?
Okay. 40 seconds, Congressman.
I've visited with every constituency that's out there, certainly with the Tea Party people, and I share the same ideas as far as the fear today that we have that we're losing our freedoms, that we're losing our liberties. The federal government has gone way beyond what the Founding Fathers ever intended to have happen, and that we've got to restrict that. And it's budget It's the regulatory part of it. It is making sure that we understand in the federal government that this is a free country and we are individuals.
All right, thank you very much. If you're on the phone, please stay there. We're going to get straight to you. In the meantime, Jim Brown and some traffic and weather. Jim? Okay, we are in studio with Congressman Tom Latham. If you're on the phone, please be patient. I will get to your calls, I promise you. But the next thing in our target here on this show is college tuition. It's not the tuition itself so much as the set aside. And, you know, we don't ambush people here, Congressman, so we gave your office the heads up that we wanted to talk about this because I was horrified to discover just a week and a half or so ago that, depending on which school we're talking about, but up to a quarter of the tuition you pay when you either pay for your kids or the kids get loans and pay for themselves goes to some other kid. This is disgraceful, surely, right?
Well, it's very disturbing. I don't think many people were aware of that. I certainly wasn't. I think it's at Iowa State where about 20% of the tuition goes
Iowa is 24, Iowa State, just so if you want the numbers, okay. Iowa's 24, Iowa State's 18.6,
okay.
And UNI is 15.3.
Well, and it's apparently they justify it that it's a transfer to help more students be able to get an opportunity to get an education. But the fact of the matter is, you know, you have enough trouble, paying the tuition for your own child, let alone having 25% of it go to pay for another student's tuition. If the state believes that that's necessary, they should, more help available or have somehow the tuitions come down. But that's certainly, I don't think is fair at all for individuals to have to pay for someone else.
And and you talk about
They're forced to pay for
parents paying for their kids. I do that for my own
right.
daughters. But there are plenty of students out there who are self-financing, and the only way they can self-finance is with loans.
Right.
And so they're actually borrowing 25% more than they otherwise would have to cover this tuition for somebody else.
Right.
So it's the students as well. And when you consider the students complaining about the level of their debt, well, here at U of I, it could be 24% lower.
That's exactly right. And it's I think I was certainly shocked. I think a lot of people were shocked to see those numbers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's a good start. Now,
right.
Here's the key question. What are you going to do about it?
Well, I'm not, as state universities, as from the federal level, we don't have control over what Iowa does, Iowa State or UNI. Certainly, I can express my opinion. What we can do is, I think, look at how student loans are financed themselves to make sure that we hold down the cost as much as possible of getting those student loans. But as far as from a federal level, as a federal elected official, I have no jurisdiction over the University of Iowa, Iowa State, or UNI.
But you see, here's the problem. It's the regents' universities there is a policy. It actually requires them to set aside a minimum of 15% of gross tuition, a minimum. So UNI is as close to that minimum as possible at 15.3%. They're required to do it. That's the policy. Do you not think it's worthwhile you asking for a meeting with the regents and saying, what the heck are you doing?
Well, I think the regents certainly, with the state legislature, I'm sure that's where it came from for that requirement. But certainly this is something that the state legislature should look at, the governor should look at, and to see if, in fact, one student that's borrowing money is subsidizing another student is simply wrong as far as I'm concerned.
Let's put it in real numbers, because sometimes when you talk percentages, it's unclear. So tuition at University of Iowa is $7,765. $1,864 of that goes to some other kid.
Well, and kids at Iowa State graduate, they have, I think it's $28,000 on average of student loan debt.
Yeah.
And if you're saying 20% of that would be over $5,000, $5,600.
Yeah.
Which they would add it on to their student loans that they're going to be paying off over years and years, and it simply isn't right as far as I'm concerned.
And all the interest that goes with it.
Right.
All right, let's take some calls. Let's talk to Frank. Hi, Frank.
Hey, I just wanted to address your voting issue, and there's three main issues that I thought that you should have voted the other way on. There was the
let's do them one at a time, shall we?
The reauthorization of the Patriot Act, the National Defense Authorization Act.
Well, hang on, let's do them one at a time, Frank. Let's do them one at a time.
No,
which way do you want to start?
I just wanted to make it quick and get off.
You just want to make the point. Okay, all right. Well, you made the point. Thank you very much.
Wait.
Go on.
Okay, because King and Latham and Boswell all voted yes for it, and Braley voted no. And I just want to know what's the difference between. Well, you say you don't want to give the president any more authority to regulate, but every time you turn around, your voting record proves differently.
Can we not just focus on one of these issues for now?
Well, they're all three very relevant.
Well, they are, but they're big subjects. That's why I wanted to talk about one at a time.
Someone who wants to.
No, I'm absolutely going to ask him about it right now. Frank, thank you very much. I put you on hold. You can still hear me. I'll bring you back and see what you want to say. I want to start with the most recent one, which is this internet one, which he's quite right. You voted for it. Steve King voted for it. I'm not sure about the negative vote from the Democrat because I haven't checked that. He might be right about that, but I also checked, and people that we know as good conservatives, like Michelle Bachmann, voted for it as well. How?
Well, this is a much different bill than what the previous attempt was, which would be mandatory out there, that people would give information, that would be forced to share information with the federal government. Simon, you've got to remember, we are being attacked hundreds of thousands of times a day to get our intellectual property, our national security secrets, all of these things. And what this does is a voluntary way to share information if, in fact, there is the very real probability with 300,000 at least a day attacks on the internet system, that we've got to do something to combat this. We are losing hundreds of billions of dollars worth of intellectual property all the time. A lot of it's coming from China. It's coming from places who want to steal our ideas, our inventions, and to use them against us. And so this is a voluntary situation. There's no mandatory requirement as far as information sharing.
Oh no, that is voluntary from the point of view of the companies, but here we the people, we can have our information spread around like wildfire. I mean, also the bill is really loose. I mean, I can't remember the exact phrase, but it's like "and other things." It's so loose. It amazes me that people like you and Stephen King and Michelle Bachmann, born in Iowa, from Minnesota now, representing Minnesota, that could vote for it. It amazes me.
If it were mandatory, if there was any threat, the threat for your privacy is coming from outside today, Simon. There's the hundreds of thousands of attacks on the internet every day trying to mine for your personal information. Without tools to be able to combat those, your information is going to be stolen. And that's exactly why we need something to combat these people, to have voluntary people voluntarily working together to try and solve the problem, and just to ignore it, with the hundreds of thousands of attacks every day, I think is just not the right way to go.
Well, let's forget national security, because clearly that is the responsibility of the federal government. I have no problem with the federal government being responsible for national security, but when it comes to things like intellectual property, why on earth is this the business of the federal government? And why is my information the business of the federal government? Surely the companies I choose to do business with and the websites I choose to visit, it's their responsibility to keep my information safe.
These are outside attacks from places like China.
Yep.
Okay, and people who are working there every day trying to get your personal information, trying to mine out intellectual property. And what this effort is to work together to try and stop them from doing this. No one is looking to get your personal information to be able to use for anything else, but we're trying to protect individuals' personal property.
But there's an awful lot of power contained in that bill.
It's a voluntary. There's nothing mandatory anywhere.
All right, asked and answered. Let's take 60 seconds. We'll grab some traffic and weather, and we'll be right back to the phones. Let's see. Dave is going to be next. Thank you very much for the calls. Stay there. Let's go to Jim Brown. All right, we're in the studio with Congressman Tom Latham. We just dealt with a little bit of CISPA. We may well come back to that in a moment because there's something I want to find in that. In the meantime, let's go to the phones and take some of your calls and talk to Dave. Hi, Dave.
Hi, how are you doing, Simon?
Great.
I had a question about the students paying 25% or roughly 25% going to somebody else's tuition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if all the students are doing that, it seems like somebody would come out and not have their quarter on them who would not be paying anything. I mean, or either that, if everybody was doing it, it'd come out even, wouldn't it?
Well, no, you're right. I'll just cut across the congressman here. You're absolutely right. They're taking money from some students who are paying and giving it to other students who are paying nothing.
So how do they decide who pays nothing?
It's theoretically needs-based. So if you don't have any money, you get needs-based scholarships paid for by your fellow students who had to take out a loan in order for them to supply the money, which should theoretically suggest that they have need too, but apparently people have overlooked that, Dave. You understand now?
Yes, I do, and I sure hope they can get that somebody can get that changed.
Yep, I agree with you as well. Let's go from him to Corey. Hi, Corey.
Hi, Simon. Thanks for taking my call. How
You're
you
welcome.
doing? My question's on the Cyberspace Security Act. I think that's what it's called. While it is designed to help against theft of intellectual property, it seems like a good way for the federal government to steal our privacy, if you ask me.
Well, I've got to tell you, I'm right, and I found the bit I was looking for here, Congressman. It's right at the beginning of this bill. Is providing for consideration of the bill to provide for, I wish they'd write in English, for the sharing of certain cyber threat intelligence and cyber threat information between the intelligence community and the cyber security entities, and for other purposes, providing for consideration of motions to suspend the rules providing, oh, good grief, right in English. But it's this other purposes. I mean, that's a coverall, isn't it, Congressman?
In a sense, it would expand it. That is in all legislation, and other purposes.
That's in all legislation.
But if it's virtually every piece of legislation has that language in that, and that's yes. But this is very specific as to what exactly the purpose of the legislation is. It's our national intelligence. It's our intellectual property. And, I mean, we cannot discount the threat that's out there today as coming in every day, the people that are trying to mine all the information out, and to have some way of making it not illegal for people to voluntarily share information when they know they're being attacked. They need help from oftentimes the federal government that has the ability to stop these attacks, and that's what this voluntary effort is about, and is what the bill's about.
Are you buying that, Corey?
Well, it just all seems like a rebranding of the SOPA or PIPA Act.
That was mandatory.
Just incorporating cyber terrorism into it to make it sound more legitimate. It is an expansion of the federal government's powers overall, is it not?
Well, here's the upside, Corey. I'll give you the upside now, shall I? It's got no chance of becoming law the way it's written. Because A, it's got to go through the Senate, and B, the president has said if it reaches his desk, he's going to veto it.
That's one good thing he's doing, I guess.
Yeah, but it's only because he wants something more that's more intrusive. Don't relax too much.
He wants it to be mandatory.
He wants something way more intrusive. He doesn't think this goes far enough.
Right.
But the bottom line is, if he does veto it in this election year, I think we'll have seen the back of it for 2012. Got it now?
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much, Simon.
All right, no problem. Thanks a lot. Let's go to Joe. Hi, Joe.
Thank you, Simon.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Congressman, for taking time to be on the radio like this. My question is, when did Congress give up the power of the purse strings to the executive? We've got the executive today telling you guys, hey, look, either you pony up or we're going to have to shut down, and you're like playing catch-up, and, he jerks the chain and you guys follow instead of the other way around. And guess
You're
what?
feeling that too.
Then we get the word, hey, you guys are going to have to pony up, and, hey, guess what? I'm about out.
Yeah.
The American people are about out, and no, it's extraordinarily frustrating to me because you've got the House. We passed a budget. The Senate hasn't done it now. It's over 3 years. We have put restraints as far as spending in our budget, and we're certainly you get all kinds of media people saying that we're doing this and that, and they don't like it. We're actually trying to restrain spending in Washington, D.C. Well, the Senate, and we're talking about a $3.8 trillion spending on an annual basis, $1.3 trillion of deficit, about 38 cents of every dollar spent by the government is borrowed from places like China. And it is extraordinarily frustrating as we try to do our work, to do regular order, to try and reduce spending to get a handle on the federal government. The Senate just continues to go off. Don't worry about anything. It'll be fine. That's an election year.
As I remember my studies when I was learning how it all works, the Founding Fathers put the purse strings in the hands of the People's House, the House of Representatives, to prevent the rise of tyranny in exactly the fashion that we're seeing it here today and in the way that you're describing.
Right, and that's exactly what the House of Representatives is trying to do. The problem is when you have those bills go over to the Senate and they will not go along with it, and a president that will not sign it into law.
So just say no. Hey, fellas, we're not paying. You're going to have to find some other way. And no, you don't have the power to just go to the fellas and get it from them direct. Get the tax.
What you're going to see, unfortunately, many people believe at the end of this fiscal year is going to be another continuing resolution because of the fight that's going to happen as far as spending in Washington.
So, hang on a second, Joe. Let me ask a question. So, why won't you just simply, as Joe just said, say no and shut down the government? Call their bluff.
You know, if they have to go
hang on,
else
Joe. Hang on. You're on the air, but I just want the congressman to think and answer.
Well, that's not the way to govern. You've got to be responsible. There are real needs and services of the federal government that American people need. Now, are they way more than they should be? Yes. But we've got to make sure that we govern in a responsible way. And I will tell you, that's what November is about.
Okay, Joe, I promise you I'm going to give you a chance to come back. I've got an eye on the clock, so you're going to have at least a minute to come back at the congressman. You have my word, and I'm leaving your audio up so that you can butt in. But you see, here's the thing, Congressman. You say you've got to govern in a responsible manner, which I applaud, and you absolutely do. How many continuing resolutions are you guys going to allow? How long are you going to allow it to go before the United States Senate passes a budget? What are we now, 3 years and counting?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is disgraceful. And when we got close to shutting down the government, we were told that 1 million non-essential workers would be laid off. Have at it. Lay them off. They're non-essential.
We should pass my bill, which says that if the Congress doesn't do its work and pass a budget, nobody gets paid.
I agree with you entirely.
And that's exactly what it should happen. Of course, the Senate will never go along. You think Harry Reid's going to pick that up?
Of course not.
I doubt it very much.
Of course not. But you see, the problem that we all see, we the people out here see, is that if we do indeed, come November, elect a Republican Senate, then neither will that body approve that law.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that. Joe, I've got about a minute 15. You get to come back, and then the congressman's going to get the final word.
Here's my query. My misunderstanding about the way the whole thing works is I hear, for example, the president put $800 million into the IRS. It's so many hundreds of trillions here, there, and every other. Where's that coming from? They just print it up. We have electronic currency now. Is the basis of the power of the purse string completely in the hands of the executive? And,
okay. Let him answer, because I want him to have time before the time runs out. So, Congressman?
Well, it is not, and that's why he wants to transfer about $8.5 billion into a different fund from the Health and Human Services Department to give supposedly a pilot program, which basically to extend the Medicare plans before the election, because otherwise they're going to, people are going to yell and scream that they're doing away. And remember the idea of supposedly having a choice as to keep your own policy.
Absolutely.
Not the case. But
well, look,
that's what elections are about, folks.
Absolutely.
I will guarantee you.
We're out of time. I'm always grateful to you and indeed Congressman King for coming in here. I never make it
Latham.
I said, and Congressman King.
Okay.
I know exactly who you are. I'm always grateful when you and Congressman King make yourself available, because I never make it easy on any of you guys. Because, you know, at the end of the day, you want to represent us, and we have questions. But I'm genuinely grateful that you took the time to come in,
Great
Congressman
to be with
Latham, and I do know exactly who you are. All right, we're a little late, but Andrew will forgive me. News Radio 1040 WHO.